second part of our two-part series with Jim Jenkins in his special art room called the show is called The Tipping Point, Sculptures in Motion. And nobody is better at this than me. Nobody. I'm telling you, I've seen them all. He's the best. You want to start talking?
Okay. Well, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, my name is Jim Jenkins. I've been making things that move for well, quite a while, several decades actually. As a kid, I was always liked making art. I also enjoyed like inventors and inventions and the mechanisms of machines and stuff like that. And at some point, just about the time I started college, I realized there was a kind of a junction where art and mechanisms came together in a genre called kinetic art. And I was hooked. And that's basically the only kind of sculpture I've been making ever since. So so I'm basically just kind of, I always tell people I'm just kind of making things now that I always wanted to make when I was a kid. But now I've got a better idea how to do it. So anyway, a lot of these pieces were made this year. And of course, you know, what a year it's been. So there's a little bit of obviously the influence of the lockdown and the virus going through some of these pieces. And I guess we can start with this one right here. The title of this piece is called Fahrenheit 2020. And just sort of like a little comment on the current state of the world in an otherwise lost year. The world student talks about the skillet over a little mechanism of dancing flames. The globe is just a real globe that the flames are obviously fabricated. And the frying pan came into a couple of pieces that are in this show. And because these are actually, I love the look of a cast iron frying pan, but obviously it's a very heavy item to include and try and mechanize. So I actually took a mold off of one. And so built this one and the other one. Actually, I've been cast in cast resin. So it's a fraction of the weight of a real frying pan. And but still it's pretty good, I think. So you can also see by the back of the piece here how the frying pan sort of moves. It's on a gimbal of a pair of motors. One that moves the frying pan from front to back, and another one from side to side. And that sort of creates like basically kind of a wobbly motion to activate the globe. And the other thing with some of my pieces is that they rely on both what I call direct movement and indirect movement. And a direct movement would be one in which the objects are connected directly to a motor. And the indirect motion is affected by basically objects that aren't connected to the motor per se, but they're affected by the ones that are. And so in this case, the globe obviously is an indirect motion as a result of the movement of the frying pan. And I kind of like that in some pieces because it helps set up kind of a more random effect or a random sort of experience of this rather than something just being so repetitive all the time. And so that's Fahrenheit 2020. Okay, this next piece is actually based on a date of February 13th, 2017. The title of the piece is Harrison Chooses Poorly. And don't get me wrong, Harrison Ford is one of my favorite actors, but just happened to come across a pair of cast resin Harrison Ford heads about the same time that he had a mishap, not his first mishap in terms of piloting, in which at the Orange County Airport he landed on the taxiway instead of the runway. And the taxiway is a lane that planes use to actually go from the terminal out to the runway. And so he basically, in doing so, he barely missed a whole plane full of about 100 passengers. He had to apologize to the tower and all this sort of thing. So anyway, this piece kind of resulted in maybe one possible reason for that happening. So this piece is on a push button here that goes through a little sequence. So if we push the button start, we can see Harrison in the shadow, happily flying along. And at some point he kind of gets distracted by himself, which maybe is the reason for the mishap. So anyways, it goes through about maybe like a 29-second cycle. So at this point, he gets distracted by himself. He's doing his little Eskimo kiss. As the plane comes across, runways, flashing red lights, all the other planes are in a wall, and then he goes back to business, and as he makes it fly along. So in terms of some of the materials in this piece, again, the heads are cast in resin. The plane is all cast in aluminum, and with the other sort of like miniature toy airplanes that fill out the rest of the whole scene. And a lot of the mechanisms are kind of veiled a bit behind some of the perforated steel I use here, and and I like using perforated steel because it's sort of it kind of like obviously keeps fingers and things away from the sensitive parts of the mechanism, but also it's with all the holes, it kind of is transparent, so you can still sort of see some of the activity that's going on. That's important. Okay, so this is another piece inspired by the pandemic with a frying pan. In this case, I had the idea for doing some sort of a rowing boat over a series of mechanical waves. And as I thought about the piece, I was thinking that, well, you know, I don't really necessarily have to use a boat to be the vessel. Like anything can sort of be symbolic of that. So I thought all kinds of things. I could use other sort of objects. And then I came across the idea of the frying pan. And I guess because I thought the frying pan would work, I could use like, you know, wooden spoons for the oars, perfect. And also kind of related to just this year, where with the lockdowns we had, experiences like that, how people were spending a lot more time in the kitchen. And so it sort of celebrates that in a way. And, you know, in fact, my wife, you know, I tried her hand baking bread for the first time since high school. So this piece kind of inspired by that. Again, this is the skillet is made out of cast resin, but then sprayed in with a flat black to emulate the look of a real cast iron skillet. The mechanical waves are actually strips of aluminum that I have powder coated with a translucent blue. And I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera or not, but in some of the videos that might be available to look at, there's a really nice transparency that allows the texture of the buffed aluminum to show through the color. And it really, the light that dances off the surface is really wonderful. I was really pleased with how that came out. I used the powder coat process in several of my pieces for color because the pigment itself is much more durable than just regular paint. And it's just the reflective quality also just can't be beat. This piece is called Turbulent Tides, Turbulent Times. Okay, so there's been recurring sort of like images I've used in my work over the years, and one of those is the use of the chair. I've used it in my own work. I've also used when I taught sculpture for many years at Cal State Fullerton, and one of the assignments I would give would be a sign basically to incorporate a chair in your sculpture somehow, or chairs. And they could either take a found chair, manipulate it, or create their own. And so this is one of the pieces I did based on that. You can push button start here. And again, kind of another great example of the thing I talked about earlier with the direct movement versus the indirect movement. So in this case, the bottom chair is the one that's hooked up directly to the mechanism. And the middle and upper chair are just pivoted on bearings and counterweighted. So again, their motion is completely affected by the one lower chair. And so as a result, they undulate the dance back and forth quite a bit. And then kind of, you know, fairly unpredictable way, which is kind of adds to the whole thing. So again, these pieces that are on push buttons also have kind of a set timer already built into them. And so this piece basically will run for a couple minutes and you just stop on its own until the button is pushed again. I guess the fun thing about some of these things was trying to scale down the chair from a 2-foot chair to an 18-inch chair to a 10-inch chair without really, sacrificing the scale of it. Chairs are all made out of birch also. with again just one motor down below. Okay, so then this piece is again another chair piece that's has one little blue chair that's kind of bouncing around, and then it has a small orange chair that again is only on a counterweight. That's kind of flipped, and so every now and then the orange chair is flipped and it begins to sort of flop it down in a very regular fashion inside the blue chair. And then the other thing is that there's this house form that's together and it separates and then comes back together to sort of frame and unframe the whole little chair sequence that's going on there. It seems to go to the can right now, actually. Let's come back to that. Yeah, let's check back on this one. So again, another chair piece. Basically, that became the title of the show, Tipping Point. And again, the same thing again, the direct motion of the two bottom chairs that just kind of slowly sway back and forth. And then the chair on top is just basically has limited motion. So if the two chairs at the bottom go side to side, it's kind of forced to tip from one side to the other. And then there's again the globe that comes into effect in a lot of works. It just sort of again also has that sort of kind of makes it a little bit of erraticness, a little bit unpredictability of the side movement. Again, birch chairs, toy globe, again powder coated surface here on the green, and this is one of those pieces where I wasn't sure. I mean, on paper, I had the idea for this thing, but I wasn't sure if it would work. So, you know, if this thing actually tipped the way I wanted to, and but it did. So I was thrilled. Okay, this piece, motion study, it's a chair wave. Same sort of idea where, in this case, the this little, you know, series of 6 little chairs are just basically kind of forming almost like a chorus line of a sense, as they just sort of go through this whole motion of a rolling wave of sorts. And the again, just and then just try and scale down everything, of course. And then in the background, just a couple of colored pieces of plexiglass here that sort of slowly sort of like undulate and alter up and down to basically just kind of activate the background a bit. Go from there. So again, it's again one of those pieces where it's the perforated metal that covers the front here is still transparent enough that you still sort of see the activity of what's going on inside. And plus, I mean, there's other little holes you can look through inside stuff as well. But I think I did a count. I think this piece has something like 46 bearings in it. So it's got the bearings really help to well, just make things move nice and smooth and stuff. Okay, get the shout out coming up right now. This piece is called Motion Study Utensils as Birds. And again, the birds are another theme that's come into a lot of my work over the years. And in this case, rather than being conventional wings, I decided to use forks and spoons as the wings. And so there's sort of this little flock of these utensil birds that are sort of flying away from this, sort of birdhouse looking shape. But then every like 40 seconds or so, the text pops out of the top. That's it says left to me. So I guess it kind of takes on the notion of you're not only eating utensils, but the whole idea of like wrappers and stuff like that feed on prey and hunt, that sort of thing. So, so then the other, I guess really the last piece of the show is another.
Did you see the one coming up that says the
Last piece of the show is another, again, bird themed piece, a little simpler version, but still in which I got sort of two birds again with the forked and spoons wings, and they're on this very spindly sort of like spiraling branch setup, in which the motion of the birds themselves sort of set the branches into motion. So again, the branches sort of becomes like the indirect motion of the birds. One of the birds moves much quicker than the other one.
Oh, they look like they're talking to each other.
And that begins to create a bit of a dialogue. So, yeah.
She was very thankful that when my client was in here and she was talking to both of them.
So, yeah, so it's again this a piece called motion's going to eat fork bird, spoon bird.
All right.
So
the question is, are there any questions?
If you have any questions, please unmute yourselves. We would love to answer them.
Hello.
Hi, this is Don.
Hi, Don.
I just wanted to say I bought your art rat piece today and I love it.
well, thank you so much.
It's like my favorite piece.
Well, that makes us all happy.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for supporting the arts.
Oh, you're welcome.
Supporting the gallery.
And supporting the artists.
That's right. Absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed the show.
Oh, I did. I loved it. I almost wanted to buy a couple others, but I couldn't afford it.
Well, let's show me up for a couple of months. So you.
Something might happen.
Oh yeah, I'll probably be back.
Good. Well, again, thank you very much.
All right, thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah,
Okay, you bet.
I came in at 5 and you were already talking, so maybe I missed it. But I just wondered what your background was and how you got into this, the mechanics of all of this. And they're wonderful. I love the hypnotic quality to some of them. I could just sit there and escape this world staring at chairs waving up and down.
Well, we have something in common there because when I actually finally built something and then turn it on for the first time and it works, I also have just kind of like, I have to sit back and just, see what's basically has happened because it's a great feeling of joy for one thing, of course, but also some of the pieces definitely have a bit of a hypnotic kind of like lulling quality to them, and particularly some of the ones that have like the slower motions and stuff like that. And but to answer your question, my background, again, I just mentioned earlier, as a kid, I did have an interest in art and like technology in terms of like scientists, inventors, and things like that. And then, of course, later on, those paths crossed for me to come basically to make like technological art. But I just went to college as an art major, thinking I'd go into like graphic design because that's the only thing that the high school counselors would say that the only career in art you got to be a graphic designer. But once in college, I started taking all these other classes I've never had before, and that includes sculpture. And all of a sudden, I got to think my first sculpture class. I attempted to make my first moving piece, and it was actually like a little battery-operated car that I was supposed to ride in, but it worked without me getting in it. But when I got in it, it didn't look so good. So, but anyway, that kind of started me on my path. And as I got a little more familiar with just how to put stuff together, one of my sculpture teachers was a motorcycle guy. So he had some basic knowledge of motors and chains and sprockets and stuff like that really helped. And then I just kind of kept doing it. Things would break and come apart, and I'd learn from that. And I just basically still, I always figured I'd quit making things move when my ideas took me elsewhere, but it hasn't happened yet. So, so we'll see.
Well, great. I love them.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Sure.
Anybody else have
I'd
any
like-
questions?
Sure, I'm Cynthia Sitton. I just, it's more of just commentary on how joyful they are in the way that I remember, I think they were called erector sets when we were children. The way, this is like a really incredibly advanced artistic version of that, but it still has that joyful quality when you look at them with the movement. I'm really loving them. Thanks for sharing them. They're great.
I had an erector set, by the way, and my first sculptures I made in college, I used the motor from my erector set.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
So,
Yeah.
so it's definitely a rite of passage. Thank you.